Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah ta'ala will start shortly. We're just waiting for people to gather. Inshallah ta'ala will start shortly once people gather. A few minutes. Inshallah ta'ala will start in 2 minutes. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Muhammadin Nabil Ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah for the ni'mah of Islam. Alhamdulillah that He has guided us to the deen of Islam and allowed us to be members of this great ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Just a quick recap, review of what we did so far, what we've done so far. The first is that we started by dictating or deciding what are the tools, or questioning what kind of tools we have to discuss how we're going to approach the issue of the existence of the human being, and how we came about being in this world, how this world came to be, etc. And we restricted everything to, and we said the tool is going to be the mind and the intellect, the ability to think, something that the human being is distinguished with. And we said that this thought process has to be sense-based, meaning it has to rely on one or more of the senses we have, so that we can determine whether something exists or not, whether something is true or not. So we are going to rely on rationale, on our thinking abilities to determine or to answer the biggest question that we're facing, which is the issue of the existence. And then we said, okay, our senses, we looked at the world around us, the universe and all that exists, and we found it to be in a certain system, functioning in a certain system. And it's in preparation for the human beings, whether it is the cycle of life, whether it is the sun, the moon, and their relationship with the oceans, with the food, the gravity, air, etc. All of this led us to the basic conclusion, which is innate to the human being, which namely that, the idea of the basic types of knowledge, the basic types of intellect that the human being has, which is certain basic rules, such as the concept of causality, that nothing comes without a cause, that if there is something that exists, something must have made it exist, or something that is dependent on something to move it, to create it, to make it, then automatically we say that somebody must have made it. Nobody looks at their phones and they decide that they made themselves just because of some time factor. Nobody looks at any item that it does not have itself. It does not have it cannot drive itself. It cannot move itself, and then we decide that it made itself, or it moved itself from point A to point B. So all of these things, based on that, we looked at the universe, and we said that the meticulousness, the intricacy of the world, the system that it's run by, the mere existence of the universe, on top of it, the meticulous system that it functions according to, we said that this leads that somebody must have made it, somebody must have organized it, and that being who organized it, who made it, that creator who made it happen, has the qualities of perfection, and the qualities of knowledge, and the qualities of wisdom, the qualities of why? Because whatever exists shows that it was not haphazard, it is not faulty in such a way, and therefore it requires the knowledgeable, the expertise, the knowledge and the expertise of the creator, and that would be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we looked at the Qur'an al-Kareem. We looked at the Qur'an and how a man from Mecca who was living in an unlettered society, and he himself was unlettered, unknown of knowing men of knowledge or scholars of any sort. He had nothing in particular in terms of knowledge of history, or knowledge of religions, or the history of religions, or their belief systems, what Christianity believed in, what Judaism believed in, what other religions believed in, idol worship. So all of these things, were the background, or the backdrop for the revelation of the Qur'an al-Kareem, or the introduction of the Qur'an al-Kareem. The Qur'an comes and addresses these ideas of beliefs, ideas of history, ideas of even the idea of the beginning of creation, and it's presented by a man of such background, leads us to the conclusion that this cannot be from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or any human being, especially that in addition to the content and the surroundings of this content, you have the fact that it is phrased, it's mentioned, it is brought to the human beings with in such a language and such an eloquence that is beyond the capability of a human being. And so in something the Arabic has prose and poetry, and Qur'an Kareem comes neither this nor that, but a unique system, a unique way of speech that notices the depth of the meaning, as well as the rhythm and the musical tune of it, the choice of the best words, the choice of the sentences, the phrases of how they are, to get to the point to say that this cannot be from somebody from other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator subhanahu wa ta'ala, because even the Arabs who excelled in this language, excelled in this type of knowledge, and they differentiated mankind based on who's an Arab and who's not an Arab. Those people, they were the top of their knowledge of the Arabic language, were incapable of producing even a simple surah of 3 verses like the Qur'an Kareem. So that gives us then it means that the one who this Quran is brought to us by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and anybody who carries the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is called a messenger, and therefore he's a messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran describes him as a messenger when he subhanahu wa ta'ala, when the Quran says وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ, and Muhammad is nothing but a messenger. Allah Ta'ala also in the Quran says وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ, and obey Allah and obey the messenger. Not only that, he is the seal of the prophets and the last to be revealed to. Allah Ta'ala says مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَخَاتَمَ النَّبِيِّينَ. That Muhammad is not the father of any of you, but rather he is the messenger of God and the seal of all prophets. And this Quran tells us also that we are supposed to obey Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and take whatever he brings to us. He says subhanahu wa ta'ala وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. And whatever the messenger brings to you, you are to take it. Whatever he commands you or orders you to stay away from, you are to refrain from it. And he told us that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who brought us the Quran, who is the one who needs to be obeyed, who must be obeyed, is also does not speak out of his own whims or desires, but rather being revealed to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. So that he does not speak out of his own desires, his own minds, but he is merely being revealed to. So that means that now, since we're discussing the subject of Aqeedah and rules for that matter, really we Muslims have 2 sources of belief system and for beliefs and rules. So one is, for the belief system for now, we have the 2 sources of the belief system, and that is the rationale or the mind, and the second is the text itself, meaning the Quran and the Sunnah. So now we have to, before we continue, let's take a quick, just pause a little bit and to discuss what this Aqeedah, how the Quran presents the Aqeedah. In other words, what conditions we must have for this to be considered Aqeedah or an Islamic belief system. The Quran requires certainty. The Quran requires certainty, in the belief system. So that meaning you are to believe in this belief system without any doubt, without any margin of error, without feeling of there might be something that is not true or not correct. For this belief system to be acquired, meaning for a person to be convinced of the belief system of Islam, without any doubt, without any hesitation, then it means that the evidence for this belief system has to be something that is beyond doubt. Because if it has doubt, it cannot lead to certainty. If there is a margin of error in the belief system, in the evidence that leads to the belief system, it cannot, the evidence with margin of error cannot produce something of certainty. Okay, so therefore, based on that, there are certain things that become established. One, anything that has a margin of error cannot be used as a proof. So, for example, imitation. To imitate somebody in their belief system. Why am I a Muslim? Because my neighbor is a Muslim. Why do I believe in Allah Ta'ala? Because it's trendy, Or why do I, believe in Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Because let's say the Muslims, some Muslims qualify for zakah if you, something like that. So, or excuse me, because somebody said so, somebody I trust said so. Actually, we are in the Quran. We are commanded not to imitate people, just like the people of the mushriks of Mecca, the idol worshippers of the Arabs. They used to imitate their forefathers. So the Quran questions them. For example, it says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا أَلْفَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا أَوَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاؤُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ. So that, and if it is said to them, follow what Allah Ta'ala revealed. They said, no, we will follow what we found our forefathers following. So Allah Ta'ala, the Quran refutes that by saying, how about if their forefathers did not have the proper understanding, nor were they guided? So you put your trust, your evidence for conviction based on somebody else's statement. How about if that person is wrong? How about if that person is not guided? Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in Surah Luqman, He says, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا وَجَدْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا أَوَلَوْ كَانَ الشَّيْطَانُ يَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَى عَذَابِ السَّعِيرِ. So, and if it is said to them, follow what Allah revealed, they said, no, we will follow what we found our forefathers doing. How about if the shaitan invites them to the punishment of hellfire? Meaning what? The shaitan led your forefathers astray, and now he's taking them to hellfire, and now you are going to follow them and go to hellfire with them. Why? Because you're imitating them. So that kind of the imitation here, where the possibility of going astray, the possibility that the evidence is not valid, that is rejected in principle. And therefore, you cannot imitate somebody. Why are you a Muslim? Because so and so is a Muslim, or I'm imitating them. I trust them. They are good people, or they're smart people. No, actually, the beliefs cannot be done by imitation, but rather they have to be done based on evidence and based on knowledge. Now, here just a small side note, which does not mean that that the person who is a Muslim and because everybody else is a Muslim and he did not give it much thought that he is not a Muslim. No, not at all. Nor does it mean that we go around asking people, how did you become a Muslim? How did you become Muslim? That's not the case. We are talking about how Islam approaches the idea of belief. And we're saying that Islam requires certainty in the way you believe. And if that certainty requires evidence. Now, the evidence could be as simple as, looking at your child and saying, Subhanallah, I believe in Allah Ta'ala, or reading the Qur'an Kareem and touching you, or whatever constituted, absolute evidence for you. That is perfectly fine. Not all human beings are the same, and they're going to be convinced in the same way, etc., etc. But rather, it is somebody hears the adhan, not the Quran. Somebody hears the adhan and literally says, this is not something from a human being, and submits to it and says, I believe in Islam. Absolutely, there's no problem in that. So the point here is that it cannot be based on something that for the person has a margin of error, where it could be this way, it could be that way. So imitation in general, it is something that the Quran Kareem, or that's something that Islam condemned as a way for belief. Similarly, following your own emotions and your own desires, because again, your emotions and desires are not a safe way. They do not give you any type of certainty, any type of evidence for why something is right or why something is wrong. Your feelings fluctuate up and down. And Allah Ta'ala condemns the people who follow their desires, their whims, their likings, their dislikings, meaning just their emotions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَرَفَعْنَاهُ بِهَا وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ. And if we wished, we would have elevated him with it, meaning with the message of Islam, but he stuck to the ground. He stayed lower to the ground, and he followed his desires. He followed his whims. The same thing, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ وختم على سمعه وقلبه وجعل على بصره غشاوة فمن يهديه من بعد الله أفلا تذكرون. So don't you look at the person who took their own desires as a way, and Allah Ta'ala led him astray with while he has the knowledge. So look at the difference between the knowledge and the desires. The desires are something and the knowledge is something else. Sometimes if your desires are following, pushing you in a certain way, they don't necessarily mean that they are correct. And here the person, you have the knowledge and you have the desires, the person followed something else and deserved the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As a matter of fact, just the mere emotions and sentiments and instincts by themselves, unguided, uncontrolled by the thought process, leads people to astray, like the people of Quraysh, the mushriks, the idol worshippers. What led them to worship idols? It wasn't based on rational conviction. It wasn't based on a thought process that they said, yes, we need to worship God, we need to worship those idols to get to the Creator. But rather, they decided that we are nobodies to reach the Creator. We need intermediaries. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَا لِلَّهِ الدِّينُ الْخَالِصِ. Indeed, for Allah belongs the pure deen. وَالَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ مَا نَعْبُدُهُمْ إِلَّا لِيُقَرِّبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ زُلْفَى. And for those who took awliya, below him, meaning what the idols and the people that they put intermediaries between them and Allah Ta'ala, why did you follow them? Only to get us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, but based on what? Did Allah Ta'ala tell you that you need intermediaries? No, He did not. So on what basis did you base that belief system? So it is the idea that following emotions, imitations, desires, these things are that do not give you certainty in the belief, are rejected in Islam as the way of achieving the belief system. And it requires, actually, you have the text requiring that the belief system has to be based on facts, not based on conjecture or margin of error, on best effort kind of thing, not at all. So, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Najm, إن هي إلا أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان إن يتبعون إلا الظن وما تهوى الأنفس ولقد جاءهم من ربهم الهدى. That these are merely names. They gave the angels names. So these are merely names that you called with your forefathers. Allah Ta'ala did not reveal any evidence. Sultan is, by definition, sultan, the word sultan is absolute proof or definitive proof. They only follow conjecture. They only follow the doubtful. وَمَا تَهْوَى الْأَنفُسِ, and what their desires, lead them to. وَلَقَدْ جَاءَهُم مِّن رَّبِّهِمْ. But the clear guidance came from Allah, from their Lord. He also says in the same surah, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْآخِرَةِ لَيُسَمُّونَ الْمَلَائِكَةَ تَسْمِيَةَ الْأُنثَى. Indeed, those who do not believe in the akhirah, they name the angels by the names of females. Now, where did they get these names from? Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ. And they have no knowledge of that. Allah Ta'ala did not reveal some knowledge for them to accept it, to say based on that the angels have these names or not name. How do you know if the angels to start with are beyond our sense? They are in the metaphysical, not in the physical. They are out of your comprehension. So how do you know what their names are? It is you're making it up, not based on ilm or knowledge. And look at the opposite of knowledge. Allah Ta'ala says, they are not following knowledge. They will only follow conjecture. The conjecture could be more likelihood, the probability, the higher probability. It could be conjecture, it could be whims, it could be, it fluctuates. But it's still, It's Allah Ta'ala used it opposed to ilm, opposed to knowledge. وَمَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ. They have no knowledge, they only follow conjecture. Meaning the ilm here is with certainty, with no margin of error. And he continues subhanahu wa ta'ala by saying, وَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. And the dhann does not stand, does not suffice instead of the al-haq. Dhann, conjecture, doubtful things, do not take the position of al-haq. He also, not only that, in Surah Al-An'am, he says, وَإِن تُطِعْ أَكْثَرَ مَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ يُضِلُّوكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنْ هُمْ إِلَّا يَخْرُصُونَ. That, and if you follow most people on earth, they will take you astray from Allah Ta'ala. Why? They follow, they only follow the conjecture, and they're only guessing. And because this is most of the people on earth, really, most of the people do not read, they do not study, they do not analyze, they do not, form their opinions based on knowledge, but rather based on conjecture and hearsay. So that takes us to the next point. And the conclusion of this is that Islam the Aqeedah of Islam is based on rationale, is based on thought. It is not based on a blind faith. It's not a blind faith. It's not a belief that you cannot prove. It's not something that is simply, and when I say faith, I mean as defined in the dictionary. When they defined in the dictionary, they said strong belief, and I'm quoting, strong belief in God or in the doctrines of a religion. Strong belief in God or in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. It's not proof. It's not proof based. And this is the idea of the blind faith, or the idea of believing without evidence. And this is something that Islam does not accept. So that really it does not accept just hearsay, it's spiritual apprehension, whatever that means. But there is no proof for it. It is only this or that. That is something that Islam does not accept. And Islam requires the proof. And as we mentioned, the ayat requiring proofs, requiring evidence, cannot be based on imitation or emulation or emotions, etc. Okay, so then we are talking about now the sources of the belief system. We said it has to be the mind or the text, or the mind and the text. So now, in terms of the mind, we talked about the mind, and we talked about the idea of the rational proof and the rational evidence, and how they must be definitive. And how do we know that they're definite? If they are based on senses. So if I can say something, if my thinking is about something under my senses, and I have the previous knowledge to explain it, then the conclusion that I will reach is absolutely conclusive and absolute. So if, for example, if I have an object in front of me, and you want to pass judgment, whether this is made or not, the fact that it's under my senses, I can touch it. Yes, it is made. Absolutely. Why? Because the concept again of causality. Nothing exists without a cause, or nothing made exists without a maker. Things of this nature. So we are saying that if it's based on senses, then it is absolute conclusion. Now we come to the text, and this is the second evidence. So when we talk about the same thing, that just like the Qur'an requires certainty, it requires certainty in the proof, whether it is textual or whether it is rational. So they are both. The requirement applies across the board. So if it is anything then from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, proven beyond doubt to be from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then of course it is a source of Aqeedah and rules. So we take it as the source of Aqeedah. So now let's just focus on the Aqeedah here. So you find that if it is, so for example, part of the text, Al-Quran Al-Kareem. So of course the Quran Al-Kareem, the honorable Quran, comes and tells us about certain events, certain things that do exist. So for example, it mentioned that there is a day of judgment where there is questioning, reckoning for what we did in this world. And then at the consequence of this questioning, there is heaven and hell. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يَوْمَ يَجْمَعُكُمْ لِيَوْمٍ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. And one day he will gather you for a day he will gather you undoubtedly for such a day. So there is a day where everybody will be gathered, and that is the day of judgment. وَاتَّقُوا يَوْمًا تُرْجَعُونَ فِيهِ إِلَى اللَّهِ. And protect yourselves from a day you will return back to Allah. ثُمَّ تُوَفَّى كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ وَهُمْ لَا يُظْلَمُونَ. And each soul, each person will be given what according to what they earned, meaning according to their actions, and they will not be subject of injustice. They will not be Allah Ta'ala will not be unjust to them. So Allah Ta'ala also says, فَأَمَّا مَنْ ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ فَأُمُّهُ هَاوِيَةٌ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا هِيَ نَارٌ حَامِيَةٌ. So that as for the people who have their ways, the mawazin, their good deeds outweigh the bad deeds, they will live happily, meaning in al-Jannah. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ. And for the one whose good deeds are lighter than the good ones, then he will be thrown into hellfire. What do you know about it? It is severe fire, etc. So this shows the and of course I'm giving only highlights because this is common knowledge for Muslims. So, but these are the main belief system. So when we talk about, let's say, is there a day of judgment? What is the proof for the day of judgment? It is the Qur'an as an example. What is the proof for the accountability? The saying of Allah Ta'ala in Surah Al-Zalzala, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. Whoever does an atom's worth of good will see it. Whoever does an atom's worth of bad will see it. Is there a Jannah? There's a heaven? Yes. Allah Ta'ala says, سَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا كَعَرْضِ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Rush to a forgiveness from your Lord and to a heaven whose size or whose area is the width of the heavens and the earth, prepared for the muttaqeen. So we believe in the day of judgment based on the text, and the text here is absolute, that there is a day of judgment. And we are told also by the text that there are angels, there are jinn, there are shayateen, devils, there are prophets, previous prophets. Allah Ta'ala says, آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله. That the messenger believed in that which Allah revealed to him from his Lord, in that which was revealed to him from his Lord. And so did the believers. They all believe in Allah, His angels, His books, and His messengers. Allah Ta'ala tells us also about His attributes. That He Subhanahu wa Ta'ala is most forgiving, He is most merciful, He is severe in punishment. He also told us about the stories of previous prophets, about the creation of Adam, him coming out with his spouse from Al-Jannah, how Shaitan, how Iblis disobeyed Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So all of these are items of belief that we believe in, not based on hearsay. We believe in them based on the text. Our belief in the text. That's why in Islam, our belief is either based on rationale directly, or based on a foundation, on a source that is proven rationally to be valid. So we either say, when we say the existence of Allah or Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a messenger of Allah, that is based on a rational evidence, which is the miracle of the Qur'an al-Kareem, that this is what shows that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a messenger of Allah. But now, how do you believe in the Day of Judgment? There is no way to prove it rationally that there is a Day of Judgment, but we take it from where? We take it from the source, which is the Qur'an al-Kareem, that tells us there is a Day of Judgment. So it is not a quote-unquote blind faith anymore. It's not proofless. It's not based on any whims or any conjecture, but rather it is based on a foundation, on a source that is based on that's proven to be intellectually proven to be valid. So now we have also the part of also what's given to us in the Aqeedah is that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is guided by wahy, meaning that, as Allah Ta'ala says, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. so that the Prophet, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, does not speak out of his whims, out of his desires, but rather he's being revealed to. So we believe in what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought to us, just like we believe in the Qur'an al-Karim. There is no difference. There is no difference. Whatever the Prophet ﷺ brought to us, we believe in it just like we believe in Qur'an al-Karim. Why? Both of them are revelation by the text of the Qur'an, by the definition of the Qur'an. When the Qur'an says وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ, and he does not speak out of his own desires, he's only being given wahi. This is wama, it's a generality, it denotes generality. So everything that he ﷺ says that's related to the wahi, that becomes a what? Because it is from Allah Ta'ala, and it's a source of Aqeedah and Sharia for us, or set of laws for us. So now, but keep in mind, this is if this speech, the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, if it reached us in absolute manner, meaning that in a manner that cannot be, that is not subject to error. So the question is not here the question of whether we should take what the Prophet ﷺ said or not. This is a done issue for Muslim. And it is just as a side note, the people who now, some people who reject the Sunnah, in reality, if they reject the Sunnah, they're rejecting the Qur'an. And in rejecting the Sunnah renders Islam, incomplete and unimplementable. So it becomes it becomes something that is of little value, really, because when Allah Ta'ala tells you to pray and you don't know how to pray, when Allah Ta'ala, your beliefs become or the Sharia itself becomes incomplete, unimplementable once you take the Sunnah out of the equation, and that, inshallah Ta'ala, that's a separate subject we will deal with. But the point here is that I want to emphasize that when we talk about accepting the text as the second source of belief system, this is from the Quran. It is done deal because it reached us in an absolute way. But if the question is about how it reached us from the Prophet ﷺ, how the Sunnah, how the statements of the Prophet reached us, if they reached us in a manner that is beyond reproach, beyond without a margin of error, then absolutely we take it like the Qur'an al-Karim. But we cannot take it if there is a margin of error. Meaning, and when I say do not take it, I don't mean reject it. Some people think that not taking this means that it's rejected. Actually, it does not mean it's rejected. It means that it does not, the acceptance of this report does not come to the level of conclusivity that the Islam requires when it comes to the belief. So that the acceptance of the report, we accept it, we take it, provided that, but we do not say it's a matter of belief. And if you want the practical implication of such statement, if somebody says, I reject it, if somebody says, I reject it, he rejects this hadith, a specific hadith, for example, we do not call that person a kafir because there's a margin of error in it. But if somebody rejects an ayah of the Quran, a word of the Quran al-Karim, that person is not a Muslim anymore. And you see the difference. The Sunnah reached us. The Sunnah reached us really in two ways. I mean, this is just a matter of fact, by de facto. The matter of fact is that the Sunnah reached us in two ways. One is what they call the mutawatir way, or the overwhelming number of people reported a certain report or a certain statement of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that is that becomes that we're certain that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said or did, and therefore it becomes binding to us. We know for a fact it's from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and since we know for a fact from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then automatically it becomes what? It becomes a matter of a source of Aqeedah and Ahkam. We accept it unquestionably. Why? Because again, the question is not whether we accept what the Prophet said or not. The question is the report to the Prophet. Is this certain or not? If it is certain, we take it with no questions. And if it is not certain, then we say it based on the text, based on the commands of the Quran itself. we cannot take something that is or with margin of error as a source of the belief system. And of course, why so? Look at the discussions we're having. The belief system itself, the deen of Islam is standing on it. All of it, this forms the foundation for the entire religion. If there is a margin of error in the foundation of the deen, then the whole deen becomes with a margin of error. And that cannot be accepted. Cannot be accepted. So we are saying that the hadith, that the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ came to us, in one of two ways. One is by tawatur, a large number of people, where it's inconceivable for them to conspire to lie. There is no possibility of error. They come and they report something from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and we know that for a fact that this is said by the Prophet ﷺ, so we take it as a matter of aqeedah. And somebody who believes or who takes this, for example, this statement, and he says, yes, this is mutawatir, and I reject it, that person is not a Muslim. In other words, he's saying, I know for a fact that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said it, but I'm rejecting it. He's not a Muslim. But if somebody comes and says, let's say, questions his tawatur, whatever, that person, no, he's still a Muslim, and he still has his proof. The second method, which is the most common method of receiving the Sunnah of Muhammad ﷺ, is what they call ahad, or singular chains. And here, singular chains, just to be, and I don't want to go into details, and this is not, inshallah ta'ala, in the next series we'll go into more details on this. But singular chains does not mean simply one single chain to Rasul ﷺ. Actually, the more common than not, the norm is that you have multiple chains, going to Rasul ﷺ. Meaning the way that the report comes in multiple chains, links from one reporter, from another to the Prophet ﷺ. Normally, it's multiple chains. So what do we mean by singular chains, or these chains? It means that they have not reached the level of tawatur. They are not so overwhelming to the point where you can say for sure the Prophet ﷺ said it, but rather it is taken as, yes, more likelihood the Prophet ﷺ said it, or if it's a weak hadith or a weak report, we say more likelihood than the Prophet ﷺ did not say it, or absolutely the Prophet ﷺ did not say it, depending on the level of weakness, etc. So now that hadith, that second chain, that second type of report, which is the singular chains, these do not result with certainty, and therefore they are accepted, but not as the evidence for al-Aqeedah by themselves. But rather we take them as this is report to the Rasul ﷺ. We accept it, but we do not say this is what constitutes Islam, or it separates between Islam and Kufr as an example. Okay, so now then with the two sources of Aqeedah become the Qur'an and the Sunnah, and of course they constitute what I refer to as the text, and then of course we have the mind. And where does the mind fit in? Where does the Qur'an and the Sunnah, or the text fit in? We have to keep in mind, by the way, the Qur'an and the Sunnah, meaning what is they would never collapse, they will never clash, contradict with the mind. In other words, reality, what is absolute in nature, absolute and absolute, they do not go against each other. Okay, so but where does each one fall in its place in the thinking process? Thought or intellect, it comes anything under the tangibles, any under the senses, anything that's under one of your five senses, and you have previous information about it, becomes subject for thinking. So for example, the Qur'an al-Karim, the belief in the Qur'an al-Karim is based on rationale, based on thought, based on thinking about the Qur'an al-Karim. Is this a speech of Allah Ta'ala or not? Examining its miracle, examining its comprehensiveness, examining its protection, all of this subject to the mind. But the belief, for example, in the Torah, or the belief in the Injil that was revealed to Musa and Isa respectively, then these things are, we don't have them under our under our senses now, meaning they're not present here in their original form. So we believe in them because that Allah Ta'ala revealed them because of the text. The belief in let's say Zabur, what Allah Ta'ala revealed to this prophet or that prophet, we don't have them, but we believe in them. Why? Because the Qur'an mentioned them, and we believe in them based on text, not based on rationale or based on thought, because they're not under your senses. If they're not under your senses, you simply cannot think about them. So now one item here that is also related to the belief and related to the way that we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Qur'an itself tells us, أَلَا لَهُ الْخَلْقُ وَالْأَمْرُ. أَلَا لَهُ الْخَلْقُ وَالْأَمْرُ. Indeed, it belongs to him, the creationism, meaning that he subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator, wal-amr, and the command. So in other words, when we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not just as a creator, somebody who created the world and abandoned it. Go ahead, destroy each other. But rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created and sent a set of laws, sent rules with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Quran and the Sunnah, that we as the servants of Allah Ta'ala, we are supposed to abide by and live by. That's how we are held accountable on the Day of Judgment. When Allah Ta'ala tells us there is a Day of Judgment and there is accountability and there is heaven and hell, it's based on what? Based on the actions that you did in this world. So the point here is that Allah Ta'ala did not create the world and hands off, but rather He subhanahu wa ta'ala created the world and gave it the guidance for the societies to be structured, for people, how they set their behavior, how they interact with each other, their rights and duties towards each other, etc., etc. And now here this is a very comes to a very unique way to, or a very unique system to Islam, is that our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a living belief, something that you experience in every movement in your life, in every point in your life, because you are living the consequence of this belief. You're living according to these rules of these beliefs. And this living according to these rules, abiding by these rules, this actually is the manifestation of belief and the proof of your belief. Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says, فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. No, by your God, they will not believe, truly believe, until they put you as Muhammad, until they put you, O Muhammad, as a ruler amongst them when they have a dispute, in whatever dispute. And they not only that, and they find no hardship in that which you judged by, and they submit completely. So this means that you will not, that belief has to be tied, linked to the actions and the way, the life that this believer is supposed to believe in. Not only that, but this believer actually has no choice in their matter but to submit to the Creator. Allah Ta'ala did not send this deen to make us servants or slaves of each other, man to man, but rather to send this deen to make us servants to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, free from everybody's slavery. We all are only servants to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And look at what He says Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. And it is not befitting, it's not allowed for a believing man or a believing woman, if Allah and His Messenger decree something, dictate something, that they have the choice in their matter. وَمَنْ يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ ضَلَالًا مُبِينًا. And whoever disobeys Allah and His Messenger has indeed gone astray. So we have, our belief requires us to submit to the rules of Islam. Whether now, and that's another topic, we'll go into inshallah a little bit more depth later on, whether we understand the reasoning behind these rules or we don't understand the reasoning. As long as they are rules, we know that they are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. directly, meaning from the Qur'an al-Kareem, or through Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, through the Sunnah, then we take them as we take them and we abide by them. So the Muslim, immediately this believer in Allah Ta'ala, is naturally, due to this belief, submits to the commands of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in establishing salah. You give the zakah, you fast, you pray whether people are watching you or not, and you give zakah whether people are after you for it or not, and you fast whether people are, it's hot or cool, whether people questioning you or not. You command, you tell the truth. You are patient when there are hardships. You take care of your parents and you obey your parents. You command good, you forbid evil. You stay away. You do not lie. You do not have bad doubts about people. You do not betray trust. You do not cheat people. You do not you're not unjust to people. You do not commit zina. You do not etc., etc. All these rules are the natural consequence, and the consequence of the belief in Islam and the submission to the Creator Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. We submit to the rules. We submit to the rules based on our belief in the source, meaning the validity of these rules, to be kind to your parents, not to be unjust, to command good, forbid evil, to fast, to pray. Why do we do all this? What makes them valid? What makes them the right way of life is the fact that they came from the source which we went through, proving rationally that it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's absolutely valid with no question about it. So really, this is in a nutshell what the very, very high level view of how the Islamic belief system is structured. Okay. And inshallah ta'ala, next series, we'll take a small break. And when we come back in the next series, which will be, inshallah, the plan is to make it detailed. And the plan is to go not only through what we covered today or covered in this series and to go in details, but also to bring some of the issues that are raised by people who do not believe in Islam, by people who do not believe in the existence of God altogether, by people who have replaced the rational method of thinking with scientism and the scientific way of thinking. We want to discuss the limitations of this or that. We want to know how things fit. What are the issues that are some of the highlights or the main issues that are confronting, let's say, the idea of creationism, the idea that there is a creator, whether it is the, as the alternative that's given is Darwin's theory, for example, of evolution, or, with some philosophical thought against the existence of the Creator, such as the problem of evil and why is there, if there's God and He's all merciful, why is there suffering, etc., etc. We'll talk about the Qur'an al-Kareem and some of the issues that were raised about the Qur'an, whether was it preserved or not, about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and some of the attacks against him, some of the quote-unquote errors in the Qur'an Kareem. And this is, by the way, even though it will be inshallah ta'ala a detailed series, if Allah ta'ala gives us the ability and to do it, but it is at the same time, it's not designed to answer every single question anybody at any time can come up with. This is not the goal of it, but hopefully it will to structure a way of thinking, a method in approaching things, so that we can see how you can answer, how can you address issues. And at some time when you don't know the answer, it's okay. Allah Ta'ala says, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. If you don't know, ask the people who do know. Nobody should be stumped simply because you're faced with a question you don't know the answer for. Go back to people who know and you will be satisfied, inshallah ta'ala. But the idea of the series is really to address contemporary issues, philosophical issues, some of the things that that go a little bit beyond just the Aqeedah itself, but go to even the history of the Muslims and the divisions amongst the Muslims in terms of the groups based on Aqeedah, and how they impact us today, and what error was committed in the thinking process that led to these divisions and led to these issues, so that inshallah ta'ala we, this generation, the next generation, we can take them, at least we create more awareness about them and how we can avoid them. Any question? Because again, I don't see anybody posting in the chat. Okay. Then inshallah ta'ala, I'll take it as my cue. As I said, we'll take inshallah ta'ala some short break while we're preparing for the next series inshallah, and we will advertise for it. But if there's something that you want to ask, something that you want to add to, you want to have discussed, please do not hesitate. Send us a message, and inshallah ta'ala we'll incorporate it, or we'll reply to you and tell you why yes or no or whatever. But inshallah ta'ala somebody will get back to you. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير for attending and listening. السلام عليكم.